Everybody that's going, go on. Welcome. Looking forward to tomorrow night. Okay. Members of the committee, members of the council, we have the Metropolitan Transit Authority with us. Mr. Ed Oliphant is the interim executive director. Mr. Oliphant, if you will introduce all of the folks with you.
I would be glad to. First of all, on my right, I have Jeff Yarbrough, our board chairman. To my left, immediate left, we have our Finance Committee Chair, Gail Williams, and to my far left, we have Shelley McElhaney, who is our controller, and I also have board member Freddie O'Connell out in the audience, as well as our General Manager of Administration, Bob Balzer, Council Liaison, Eric Beyer, and our General Manager of the Regional Transit Authority, Laura Balzer.
Our threshold question for you, as it is for everyone else, can you operate within the mayor's proposed budget?
Yes, sir, we can.
And with that, the floor is yours to discuss the things going on with MTA.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the Budget Finance Committee and other members of council, thank you for the opportunity as the acting interim CEO to review with you the significant progress we have achieved over the past year and our plans to continue building those successes in the year ahead. None of our successes would have been possible without your help and support. Just a quick update. As you know, the former CEO, Paul Ballard, left MTA in March after 12 years of service to go head up the Fort Worth Transit Agency to manage their transit services and spearhead the construction of a new $800 million commuter rail project between the city of Fort Worth and DFW. The MTA board is currently working and conducting a national search for a new CEO and expects to have someone in place by this summer or early fall. For 3 years now in a row, we have provided more than 10 million annual passenger trips. That figure represents significant automobile mileage avoidance, air quality issues averted, and more residents arriving at their destinations with less stress. It also puts us on par with the number of people passing through the Nashville International Airport, just to give you some perspective. When the current fiscal year 2014 comes to a close on June the 30th, we will have exceeded 10.5 million trips this year. Our Access Ride program, which provides transportation services to people with disabilities, has also experienced a strong year, and we expect to close the current fiscal year with a total of approximately 380,000 trips provided. This continues our successful record of operating the largest transportation service of its kind for people with disabilities in the state of Tennessee. The Regional Transit Authority, which MTA manages, continues to perform extremely well, with their regional bus services up 15% through April compared to last year. That is over 356,000 passenger trips coming in and going out of Nashville so far this year, and the Music City Star will once again surpass the 250,000 mark for ridership this fiscal year. As you might recall, our fiscal year 14 budget that we are currently operating in did not have any real service expansion, but rather it was a year of refining the existing services and managing the service increases we implemented during fiscal year 13. In North Nashville, our University Connector route, which began service in October of 2012, continues to perform well, providing over 8,000 trips a month. The Connector serves as a crosstown route connecting North Nashville, its residents and college students, directly with Green Hills Mall. It also crosses 10 MTA radial bus routes, including the expanded West End Corridor bus route. Implementing these crosstown routes adds convenience for our riders by allowing them to transfer to other routes without having to come all the way downtown. Our expanded service on Dickerson Pike, which was also implemented in 2012, has positioned this bus route as our 6th busiest bus route in the system. This service is, if you will recall, also expanded service to Hunters Lane and Whites Creek High Schools in cooperation with Metro Nashville Public Schools. On April 1st, we doubled April 1st of last year, we doubled the night and weekend bus service in North Nashville as we ended a long-time practice of pairing routes together throughout our system during off-peak hours. As an example, we saw immediate improvement with the number 19 Herman posting an 11.4% increase in just the first month. I'm happy to report that that same service, the number 19 Herman, has maintained an increase through this year and has almost a 6% increase as a result of the changes we made. We implemented those same night and weekend service increases in East Nashville as well, with the Shelby and Scott bus routes seeing similar increases. The number 4 Shelby was also extended to connect with the Gallatin BRT Light, providing yet another transfer opportunity without having to come downtown. The number 20 Scott bus route experienced, I can't believe it, a 28.5% increase last April in ridership over the same month that year. I am also pleased to report that that route has also maintained that increase in fiscal year 14 at 21%. A big change also came last year in the Southeast and Antioch areas with the establishment of a second BRT light corridor along Murfreesboro Road on April the 1st last year. Prior to starting that new service, the corridor was providing approximately 76,500 rides. Through last month, the corridor is now providing an average of 83,000 trips, an 8.5% increase. This places it on track to duplicate the success of the Gallatin Pike BRT, which carried over 108,000 passengers last month. Our Nolensville service to the south was expanded during fiscal year 13 to increase service to Grassmere Business Park. This route will be focused on for expansion and streamlining during the year ahead, as it is our 4th busiest corridor for bus ridership and is targeted for BRT light implementation in fiscal year 16. Service to the west was also increased in 13 with improved frequency on the Broadway West End corridor, so that we are now operating the same frequency of buses today that we plan to operate should we be successful in funding our proposed fixed guideway service, the AMP. While there are no operating dollars for the AMP included in this proposed budget for fiscal year 15, the project did receive great news in early March by being included in the President's fiscal year 15 recommended budget for a $27 million federal grant award. This is part of a total anticipated investment of $75 million by the federal government in the Middle Tennessee region. The balance of that funding is expected to be awarded in consecutive years to help fund this vital project for the city and the region. What's important to remember is that the vetting process that the federal government goes through on proposed transit projects like this once again has confirmed not only the viability of the AMP project to our city and region, but that having fixed guideway BRT is the first step in developing necessary transit infrastructure Nashville needs to handle the anticipated growth we expect to see over the next 10 to 20 years. Those estimates are that more than 1 million to 1.5 million people will be in the Middle Tennessee region by 2035, which puts us in line with roughly the size of current Denver, Colorado. We're now in phase 3 of the AMP project, which is the final design and engineering and environmental assessment for this guideway. We're currently working with our consultants who are incorporating the design changes the mayor described for 2 segments of the AMP route that will now be in mixed traffic as opposed to fixed guideway. We are also working with the Citizens Advisory Committee in discussing all the segments of the AMP route to better refine the scope of the project. We anticipate completing the final design work sometime close to the end of this calendar year. Our Charlotte bus route has also been showing some strong performance as our 5th busiest with 46,000 passenger trips last month. Included in the mayor's recommended budget for MTA is a plan to implement BRT light services on the Charlotte corridor in conjunction with our spring service changes, which this year will be March 30th of 2015. Another program that we're excited about and is included in the recommended budget is our youth mobility program. While we are still coming up with an official name for the program, starting this fall in partnership with Metro Nashville Public Schools, all MNPS students in grades 9 through 12 will be able to ride all MTA services at no cost to the student. It will give the students the freedom to access more educational opportunities, transportation to possible internships or jobs, be able to participate in dual enrollment opportunities at local area community colleges, or participate in just other extracurricular activities. This idea came out of the Metro's Child and Youth Master Plan and is now coming to fruition through the recommendation of the mayor. And we're also grateful to Chair Ronnie Stein as well, who has been involved with the Youth Master Plan and youth transportation for the last several years. While we've included estimated costs for this program in our proposed budget, it is difficult to really know how many students will take advantage of this program. Consequently, because of the late date during the budget process that this program was introduced to Metro Finance, we are going to track what the actual costs and revenue impact this program has on our budget, and if necessary, in spring 2015, we will submit a supplemental request to true up any differences between the estimated and actual costs for this project. Our free downtown Music City circuit also has some exciting news. Because of your support and being awarded a federal grant back in 2012, we will begin receiving the first of 7 new fully electric buses throughout the fall to go in service on all 3 circuit routes. Our plan is to begin using these buses during our spring service change around the end of March 2015. This will allow us to utilize the hybrid diesel buses that are currently being used on these routes in other parts of our system. These electric buses, manufactured by Proterra, are state-of-the-art and are equipped with quick charge capabilities that will allow us to use charging stations placed at Riverfront Station and eventually the new baseball stadium as we expand the Blue Circuit to serve that new stadium. We are confident that the riders of the circuit will have a high-quality, quiet experience. The only other service expansion in fiscal year 15 is related to our access ride services for people with disabilities. As I mentioned earlier, we continue to see growth in this service and must plan now for the anticipated increases in this service and continue to not have any ADA denials for anyone with disabilities. The Federal Transit Administration frowns greatly upon any kind of denial, and actually we are quite proud of our record of no ADA denials for at least the last 12 years. It's important for persons with disabilities to have good mobility choices and they need to function and have a good quality of life. Thank you for all your support and help in the past, and we earnestly ask for your support of the budget before you tonight, which will allow us to sustain our bus services in place and implement some modest service expansion so we will be able to serve our residents and visitors with the quality of public transit service we all want to provide. As the MTA board and management team have pledged in the past, we will continue to provide the highest levels of quality transit service possible based on the financial support that we receive. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And obviously, it would not be unexpected that, as a point of personal privilege, I would say how delighted I am that we are moving forward with the youth transportation program. It is hopefully the first step. Hopefully, eventually, over time, we can expand it to all high school students throughout Davidson County and then move to middle school students. But it's a great incremental change to take place, and will be hugely significant over time to the young people in our community. And since everyone else has done thank yous, clearly Paul Ballard and all of your leadership staff and your board, as well as Fred Carr and the leadership in the school system, as well as the mayor, as well as the Chamber of Commerce report card, all deserve lots of credit for helping do this. And I think over time, this is going to be a huge support to the young people of our community. And I thank you for all that. Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you folks for being here. I had a couple of questions about the BRT. How much does it cost to establish a new BRT line?
Councilman, it would depend on the length of the BRT line. As far as, Gallatin Road might be longer than Murfreesboro Road or Nolensville Road or Charlotte. The Charlotte BRT that we're proposing is an annual cost of about $2.8 million. So we have in here, since we're starting it in the spring, we have about $600,000 to $700,000 in the budget.
Okay, so the Murfreesboro Road, how much did it cost to establish that one?
The Murfreesboro Road cost, boy, you caught me on that one. I want to say it was about $3.5 million, but I will find that out for you.
Okay, and the Gallatin Road?
Gallatin Road, we started that 4 years ago, and it was a cost, I'm scared to say that one too far out. I want to say around $3 million.
Okay, so in the $2 to $3.5 million startup, based on experienced to date, right?
Yes, sir.
And to keep those running, once they're started up, once you get all the traffic lights done and all the upgraded shelters and so on, what's the estimated cost to keep them,
Well, now, the
then?
cost I just explained to you was the operating cost.
Okay.
That did not include the capital cost.
okay, that's what I was asking.
Oh, I'm sorry, the capital cost
Yeah.
as far as the number of shelters, no, I can remember that one. The Gallatin Road was about $2.5 million. The Murfreesboro Road was about $2 million. We anticipate Charlotte to be about $2 million.
Okay, so around $2 to $2.5 million to set it up
For the
and get it
setting.
going, and then between 2 to 3.5 to keep it running, sustain it
Correct.
going forward. Okay, great. And on all of those lines, you have seen a tendency for increased ridership, right?
It has. The Gallatin Road to date, and it's in its third or fourth year, but it's up overall from where it was when it started to now about 25% as far as an increase. And Murfreesboro Road, as I said, it was up about 8.5%. And that's a really good indicator because we basically had been operating it for a year, so.
Right. Okay, good. Then I had a question in your goals here. It talks about to develop a plan to achieve dedicated funding for public transit. So, you were here with us a few weeks ago as a panelist, and at that point in time, I said, my head is beginning to spin because I don't hear anybody talking in the same direction here. And you made a comment that the federal funds that were involved in getting the BRTs set up are phasing out, right?
No. You were thinking about the Regional Transit Authority as far as funds for the regional bus services.
Okay, I misunderstood then. Well, in terms of dedicated funding, you want to develop a plan, so what is your thinking about that now? I mean, which direction are you going in? How are you going to do that?
That's a great question. The Mayor's Caucus was set up in 2009 as well as the Transit Alliance, and we've been working toward building support in the business community as well as trying to determine, as Michael Skipper said, the different avenues that might be accomplished. And to this date, we have not determined what that best way would be.
So if this is a goal, will you lead out in at least starting that discussion? Councilman Tigert here tried to get that discussion started, and his efforts went down in a blaze of glory here. So nobody wants to talk about that. So will you take the lead in starting that discussion?
I wouldn't say his actions went down in a blaze of glory. I think it's actually raising the awareness level, and we're also doing that with the Regional Transportation Authorities Board as well, because as you know, it's more of a regional concept that the legislation allows for the regional transit authorities to be set up to accept dedicated funding. That's what the legislation did. So we would be dependent upon not just Davidson County, but a surrounding county or municipality or somebody. It requires two government entities to come together of a certain population size in order to do that. So we actually had meetings with the Williamson County folks last week, not specifically about dedicated funding, but the topic came up because of what you were just referring to about the CMAQ funding going down.
Well, it's obvious that if you build something, you have to have the funds to maintain it and keep it running. And it seems to me that, building something is getting the cart before the horse if you don't have the funds to keep it running. That's my personal opinion, and that's an opinion that I hear a lot from people that talk to me about transit in Nashville and how we're going to maintain it, how we're going to keep it going. So if this is your goal, then I look forward between now and the time we come here to next year when I you or whoever is sitting there in your place, and I'm saying, how did you do with your goal to work toward establishing a dedicated funding source, or at least getting that conversation started?
We will continue working on it, I promise.
Councilor A. Johnson.
Thank you. I just want to thank you all for all of the work and establishing the BRT light in the Southeast Davidson County area. Everyone is excited. We continue to look forward to even greater enhancements in terms of access to MTA within our area. I know with us losing BusLink, I had a lot of folks calling and was concerned about that, but I think that you have worked tremendously hard to try to come up with other alternatives so that that void could also be replaced as well. The question that I had that many have asked is, since putting in the BRT light, in looking at your budget, I don't know if it's where you have highlighted an increase in parts, materials, and supplies. Would that include the digital signage that will go on the new shelters?
We're in the process, we call it AVL project. It's automatic vehicle locations that we have been working on for quite some time. The 2010 flood actually set us back considerably in terms of destruction of a lot of the equipment that we had in place, and we are now in line with another contractor to hopefully have that ready in probably, I know it's in less than 12 months. To have the automatic, the real-time information on the signs to help everybody know where the bus is and when it's going to get there.
Do you have any kind of anticipated timeline in terms of when they'll start to install those?
I will have to get back to you on that. They're still in the process of developing the infrastructure to feed that information out to those signs. So,
okay, because I think that will also increase ridership, because when people can see the time and kind of know that schedule right there flashing, as they're coming up and trying to decide when I need to get here and park and get to the bus, I think will help a lot. And then final, I just wanted to give kudos to Chair Stein and your board chair and everyone, as well as most especially our mayor. Mayor Dean, highlighting this at the State of Metro address was just welcome news to so many people, and that is providing the bus services for free for students in after-school programs. That is definitely going to increase access for our children to be able to utilize after-school programs that will increase their academic achievement levels. So we commend you, MTA, for your vision and your leadership and all of the hard work you all are doing to get the number of cars off the road and people riding transit. Thank you.
and I do want to add to that we do have a big thanks to the Metro Nashville Public Schools, because they're an equal partner in this with us. So,
Councilman Tiger.
Thank you, and Ed, I do appreciate you coming and participating in our discussion a couple weeks ago. Who owns bus shelters?
we own the bus shelters.
Okay, so the mayor in the capital improvements budget is proposing $1 million. How many shelters will that buy?
That will buy us approximately 100 shelters, depending on the infrastructure, concrete pad, things like that have to be installed with it.
All right, what is the decision-making process as to where those 100 shelters would be located?
That's a great question, and the answer is that we are in the process right now. Our scheduling and operations department are looking at the highest frequency used bus benches where a shelter could go in. And also we have a list of sometimes requests for shelters, and we go look at those areas to see if it's a viable location for a shelter, but mainly based on volume and usage of that particular bus stop.
And do you require any additional legislation or processes, or are public right-of-ways ready to go for locations?
No, sir. We have the ability within our charter to put bus shelters in the public right-of-way.
All right, so there was an existing shelter on Franklin Road in front of the old Melrose Theater that was removed at the developer's request. It had some graffiti and disrepair, and it was a heavily used shelter, working in that area and going by there, but I was told several people had called and asked about when was the shelter going to be relocated, and the developer didn't want it put back there. So my point was, who has the choice if it was a heavily used, and he offered to move it down beyond the edge of the property, the new apartments down there, but the bus route apparently comes at Kirkwood, makes a northerly turn on Franklin Road, and the shelter was going to be moved, beyond where the bus would make its turn, and so the solution is put it across the street, so all those people in the new apartments and the people that were using it will now be asked to cross a busy Franklin Road to get to a shelter.
Well, Councilman, since I'm new at this, I will find out the answer to that question, because that isn't.
Well, there's several residents in that area that, and just down the street from McDonald's, where they go get a cup of coffee and then they're ready to go, and it seemed like to me that, that this developer was driving the process, and it should be you all in public right-of-way deciding that this is inappropriate or not inappropriate.
Absolutely.
Okay, Councilman Claiborne asked, and I'm a little bit confused, because we did talk at that previous meeting, a portion of your budget is funded through some type of federal grants that are one-time grants that end, and there was some worry of how we're going to make up these funds in future years, and it was.
There is some of that on the Broadway West End corridor, to follow up on that, but the main piece that is extinguishing, if that's the right way to say it, right now, is more on the Regional Transit Authority side as far as.
Okay, so
But there are some funds. We actually had some fall off last year, but basically we incorporate that in, and you would see that if I was running out, you would see that as a request based on the need.
Local funding taking its place type thing.
Yes. And also increased fares, because that's the whole point.
Sure. Okay, so you touched upon regional cooperation, and you mentioned the word Denver. So interestingly enough, someone sent me an article on the great things happening in the Denver region, and I've got copies for you and your staff and board. And I'm going to read one paragraph, and I'm going to flip the page, because I do share Councilman Claiborne's concerns about, that somebody's got to take a leadership role on the dedicated funding issue. The Denver region is in the midst of a multi-billion-dollar expansion of its transit system. Initially approved by voters in 2004, the expansion envisioned in the Fast Tracks plan over the next 20 years will ultimately span 8 counties and include 122 miles of new commuter rail and light rail, 18 miles of bus rapid transit, 57 new transit stations, expanded park and ride capacity, and improved suburb-to-suburb bus connections. Very positive article, great things going in a city that we are starting to compare ourselves more and more to in size. And then I can't help but flip over. Brentwood refuses bus fund request. A whopping $21,225 to participate in the regional transportation system. Do you have a comment on our regional transportation system and Brentwood's stance?
I agree with your sentiment.
So, how can we promote a regional transportation system when we have flaws like that over relatively minor amounts of money? I just don't understand where we're at in the whole process, I guess.
It's going to take continued raising awareness. Actually, one of the reactions we had to that was putting bus flyers out, seat drops on all the buses to let the patrons know that there's possibilities of service cancellation or at least consolidation. And the only way that gets the attention of the commissioners or whoever it might be is by people calling.
Well, once again, thank you, and I'm not going to beat up on you or anything. I think you do a great job, and Gail and Jeff and the board. It's a tough position. It's sometimes, Jeff, politically unpopular to take a leadership role in some of these issues, but if we as a region in Nashville are serious about really making inroads with the transit system that we all know that we got to have and we got to, we're going to need in the future, somebody has got to come up and take that tough stand and say, I'm going to start the conversation that it's going to require this, or this. And I don't know if it needs to be mayors, if it needs to be board members, if it needs to be bus leaders or whatnot, but at some point, that conversation has to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Gilmore.
Thank you. I just wanted to commend MTA for allowing the students from 9th through 12th to ride the bus for free. I do think that that's a big kudo, and also Councilman Stein, or Chair Stein, for his leadership. I think that's something that we do have to acknowledge, and that is a very big kudo, and I'm very excited about that. And that's it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a couple of questions. First of all, when a BRT line goes in, how do you integrate the timing of that service with the existing service that's there? Does it get added on top, or does it replace some of those?
It replaces. We actually, obviously, the BRT concept or BRT-like concept is limited stops. So, and they're set stops. They're not going to stop except at those places. So we still leave the local, what we call the local service for that route, in place on a much lower level, because a lot of the people do transition over to the faster service in the BRT.
Gotcha. Great, thank you. And then you mentioned the bus locator, which I'm really excited about. I know in many cities there's a smartphone app that goes with that, so that you can be sitting in the comfort of your home and know when it's time to rush out in the hot weather or the rain or whatever, and minimize your time standing at a bus shelter. Will that be part of this as well?
Yes, it is part of the whole project in and of itself. Once that information is available, we will develop apps. And actually, we see other people develop apps once the open communicate or open information is out there to be grabbed. They will also create apps as well.
And I know the downtown station already announces when a bus is coming. What is it getting that off of, or is it just working off the schedule?
It's just working off the schedule.
So it doesn't really know. Okay. And I think that would be a great thing. It will increase ridership, because I've got children in cities that have it, and they tell me that's key. So I'm glad it's coming. You mentioned the University Connector, what a great success that has been. Does that inspire your master plan to include more crosstown buses?
We constantly are looking for ideal ways to put in crosstown routes, because we realize that the spoken wheel concept that we have coming all the way into town to go back out of town doesn't make sense. It's kind of like, I grew up in Chattanooga, being in Chattanooga and having to fly to Atlanta to go north.
Right, painful.
But it is part of the master plan, and we do look, we did try one probably 4 or 5 years ago that went from 100 Oaks out to Opry Mills, and it was not the right time.
Mm-hmm. Do that. And along with that, in your master plan, would you also be looking at the economics of reducing the transfer fare or doing away with it completely? I know there's some cities where you just buy a ticket and it's good for 90 minutes or something like that, which can really make riding the bus a really economic way to get somewhere.
We can certainly consider that, but at this point, our policy and process is to have a purchase every time you get on the bus.
I just throw that thought out there, then to maybe look at it one more time. Oh yeah, and paying by credit card when you get on. I know for a while you could do that. The change cards are great.
No, the credit card action has not died. It's just a matter of the technology catching up.
Right.
We were actually the first in the country to do it system-wide, but people figured out the technology faster than the technology could stay ahead. There are some larger cities that have got it in place, and we certainly still have that in our plans to put back in place.
Great. I know that'll be popular. Last question. With all the youth riding, and you mentioned that then you'll have to figure out what the cost is, it seems to me that a bus costs the same to run whether it's full of people or empty, so can you explain how that increased cost, or does it?
Well, in terms of this program, a lot of what will happen is the fact that we were receiving revenue for those fares. Now we're not. So the major piece of what we would consider the cost to the program is the lost revenue.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Westerholm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that most of my concerns or questions have been addressed. I would just echo my excitement for the Youth Mobility Program and appreciate the work that you guys have done as wedded to technology. That was going to be one of my other questions, and would just say that as a frequent bus rider, I appreciate the work you guys do. And
Thank you.
Councilman Domine.
Thank you, Chairman. I had a couple of questions just to follow up on both questions asked earlier, and when we had the presentation before with Charlie's bills, that we asked what the funds had already been expended on the AMP, and we were told we would get that information. I've missed it, apparently, if we've gotten it.
Yes, it was sent. Yeah,
It was sent out. We'll make sure you get a copy.
We appreciate that, because I was just asked what was already spent and where those funds came from. Of course, I get folks on both sides of the issue trying to answer their questions. You had mentioned the rides. When you calculate the rides or the trips provided, I'm assuming that's counting the actual riders as opposed to the number of seats on the bus?
correct.
Okay, so it's not just you got 55 seats on the bus,
It's
you
actually-
provided those rides, it's actually paying passengers.
It is.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure I told somebody right. So, and the other thing was, you had mentioned you're in phase 3 of the AMP project?
Yes.
How many phases are there?
This is the final design and engineering and environmental assessment. There will be one more, and that would be construction.
All right, and that answers part of that question, but that's a whole nother topic for another day, I think.
Councilman, Ms. Waller's going to go to the office. When she goes back there later on, she'll get you the copy of that information. Councilwoman Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one more question. Is the circuit still receiving federal funds, or have those funds been eliminated?
The circuit actually was provided with local funds.
Okay, for some reason I thought a part of it was federal, so none of it was ever in the beginning?
Well, as far as the electric buses that we're about to receive, that would be federal funding.
Okay, and so how long is that for?
Well, no, that would be a one-time capital.
Capital to buy the buses?
Capital, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to find out. Thank you for the clarity. All right.
Councilman Domine, you have one more question?
Yes, thanks, Chairman. I forgot about one. I couldn't read my notes. I guess I should write neither, I guess, or put my reading glasses on. The AMP shelter, the shelters that you've said were funding in the capital improvement budget with the bus shelters, are any of those being placed along the AMP route?
Only if there is a bus bench that has a high volume would that be considered for the $1 million. It would only be coincidental that it would be on the AMP route.
Okay, I was just curious if they're placed there, they're going to have to be replaced in the event the AMP is built, and would it not be wiser to place those in a different location?
Well, we wouldn't, for where the conceptual stops are going to be for the AMP, we would not be putting a shelter there at that point.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Claiborne? You should be on. Try it now.
Try it now. There you go.
You were on before.
One more quick question that I failed to ask. The ridership program that you're extending to school students, do you think that you would ever make consideration for a similar program for especially seniors that live in senior living facilities, high-rises, that kind of thing, that are along bus routes?
Councilman, I guess that would depend upon the funding available to be able to provide that service. I mean, we would have to fund it. We can't, we don't make it a habit of providing anything free, because there is a cost to everything. So if we were able to attain the funding to do that, we would certainly look at it.
Okay.
Thank you all very much for being with us. Thank you for your good work. Mr. Potter.